The low vibration of the station's engines thrummed through Captain Kale's frame as he stood before the observation window, gazing into the infinite darkness of space. His fingers skimmed the console, chilled by the abrupt change in atmosphere. An unusual tension lingered in the air. The sudden pop of his communication device shattered his thoughts. "Captain Kale," the voice crackled through the transmission. "Your station is about to become the epicenter of a galactic crisis." Kale's jaw tightened as he tapped the screen. A deep, unfamiliar dread sank into his chest. "What's going on?" "We've received alarming reports from the High Council concerning the Crest Cubs. Their behavior is entirely unexpected," the voice said, strained, almost panicked. "They've formed an inexplicable bond with a human, a logistics officer named Emily, who arrived on a routine cargo run." Kale's hand dropped to his side. "A human?" The Crest Cubs were genetically programmed to be solitary. They could not bond with outsiders. "Exactly. That's the problem," the voice continued. "They've defied their instincts, linked with a human. You must intervene before this escalates." Kale froze, his mind racing. How could this be possible? The Crest Cubs were apex predators, solitary hunters. Their behavior had been hardwired over millions of years to survive alone, not in packs. Yet now a human had somehow forged a connection with them. Before he could answer, alarms blared across the station. "Commander, they've breached the reinforced bay doors." Lieutenant Grin shouted from the communications console. "The Cubs are incoming." Kale cut in, pulling up the station's security feed. He stared in disbelief as the Crest Cubs, each nearly a ton, smashed through the station walls as though they were paper. Their claws shredded the reinforced doors effortlessly, sparks flying in all directions. "This is impossible," Kale muttered. "They're supposed to be solitary, yet they're moving like a pack." The Cubs didn't just destroy the doors. They moved in perfect coordination, a synchronized force of nature. They weren't rampaging. They were hunting. And they knew exactly what they were doing. As the Cubs advanced through the station, Kale's heart pounded. Emily, the human at the center of this chaos, was approaching the docking bay. The Crest Cubs were heading straight for her. "Cargo vessel inbound. Sensor reads Pilot Emily, logistics specialist. Ludian supply run," the tech reported. Kale watched as Emily's small freighter touched down at the docking bay. She had no idea that 3 of the deadliest predators in the galaxy were racing toward her. "Does she know what's happening?" Grin asked. "Not a clue," Kale muttered, eyes glued to the feed. Emily disembarked, casually checking her data pad as the Crest Cubs drew closer. But rather than attack, they slowed, their movement transforming into a peculiar, almost reverent march. The scene left Kale reeling. "Emily," Kale called over the comms, but she only looked up, smiling, as the 3 Crest Cubs charged at her. They collided with her with the full force of their massive bodies. The impact should have been lethal, but Emily laughed. "Oh wow. Miss me that much?" she said, her voice light and teasing, even as she was thrown to the floor by the apex predators. They rolled with her, claws digging into the metal floor, tumbling into a heap. Kale was stunned. The Cubs, creatures capable of tearing through military-grade armor, were purring. Beneath this unremarkable human, they acted as if she were their mother, leader, and equal. "Did I miss something?" Grin asked, incredulous. "These creatures are meant for combat, not this." "They've bonded with her," Kale said, voice heavy with realization. "And I'm not sure if that's good or catastrophic." Hours passed, yet the Cubs never left Emily's side. They followed her everywhere, through hallways, cargo bays, even the mess hall. The connection was undeniable. The Cubs, once solitary and aggressive, had evolved into something new, something cooperative. "Commander," Grin reported, tone steady, but tinged with concern. "I'm getting readings from the Cubs. Their brain activity is showing patterns we've never seen. It's as if their neural pathways are adapting." "Adapting to what?" Kale asked, leaning closer to the console. "To Emily," Grin confirmed. And the strange part was, it wasn't just bonding. It was deeper. Their cooperative centers were activating. This was unprecedented for crest cubs. They had been engineered to be solitary hunters. To operate in groups like this, impossible. Kale leaned back in his chair, narrowing his eyes. Then she wasn't just bonding with them. She was unlocking something. Something buried deep inside them.
What? How?
The next morning, Kale walked the station's corridors. As he passed the cargo bay, he stopped. There, in the center of the floor, Emily sat cross-legged, the three cubs surrounding her like attentive students learning from a teacher. Zix, the largest cub, carefully held a crate, placing it next to the stack. Vil, the middle cub, organized smaller items, while Nix, the smallest, sat beside Emily, eyes locked on the data pad she held. "She's teaching them," Kale murmured. The cubs weren't merely following, they were learning. The galaxy's deadliest predators, trained to kill, were now functioning together as a coordinated unit. "Captain, this is impossible," Grin said from behind him. "I've tracked their progress. In less than 48 hours, they've mastered everything we've ever taught about teamwork. And we didn't teach them any of this. Emily did." As Emily worked, the cubs mirrored her movements, their coordination strengthening by the hour. Yet Kale knew this was spiraling beyond control. An emergency transmission cut through. "Commander Kale," the High Council's voice crackled. "You must sever the bond between the cubs and the human immediately. Their species' survival depends on preserving the genetic integrity of their pack structure. Bonds with outsiders cannot be allowed." Kale's stomach twisted. He did not want to be the one to shatter this, to destroy the connection that had transformed these apex predators into something more. But the Council's command was clear. "I can't do that," Kale said firmly. "The cubs have already chosen her. Whatever is happening, it's bigger than us." Hours passed, and the Council's pressure intensified. Yet the bond was unbreakable. The cubs, once solitary and fierce, now displayed trust, empathy, and collaboration. Kale watched Emily through the observation window. She laughed, shared meals with the cubs, taught them games, told stories of her world. Zix, Vil, and Nix responded to her every gesture, moving in perfect sync, functioning as one. He understood the truth. The Council would never accept it, but the crest cubs were no longer just predators. They were evolving into something else, something human. Kale studied the medical scans, mind racing. Emily's touch, it was awakening dormant potential in the species. She wasn't merely teaching cooperation. She was restoring what their ancestors had lost, suppressed for millions of years. "Do we stop her?" Grin asked. Kale hesitated, glancing at the cubs again. "I don't think we can." The station thrummed with quiet tension. Emily stood, arms extended in a universal gesture of care. Zix, Vil, and Nix circled her, not as hunters, but as equals, their eyes reflecting trust, something primal, something ancient awakened. The weight of a galaxy pressed on Kale. The Council's warnings echoed in his mind, but the cubs' movements were undeniable, beyond biology, beyond instinct. How this would end was unknown. Would the galaxy forgive them? Yet one fact was clear. Emily had given them a choice. A choice to break free from instinct, to embrace a new path. Cooperation over isolation. Unity over division. Kale realized they were on the cusp of something unimaginable. And it was Emily, a simple cargo officer, with no special training, who had unlocked it. She had revived something long forgotten. It wasn't only the cubs that had changed, it was the station, perhaps even the galaxy. He watched Emily laugh, the cubs leaning into her. Their predatory gaze had softened into warmth. Kale's voice broke the silence. "We stand at a crossroads. Everything we knew can be rewritten. This bond could change everything, not just for the Kresk, but for all of us." He looked at his crew, at the few council members witnessing the scene in disbelief. "The choice is ours. We can ignore this and return to the old ways, or we can embrace a future we never imagined. A future of trust, cooperation, and strength in unity." Kale turned to Emily, who laughed softly with Zix, hand resting gently on his back. She didn't realize the monumental shift she had triggered, but there it was, undeniable. He stepped from the console, a final decision solidifying. This moment would define them. Do they turn back, or step into the unknown? This wasn't just about the Kresk. It was about everyone. About what could be accomplished when division is set aside for unity. He faced the crew, voice resolute. The path ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear. We face it together. As the words left him, the station seemed to exhale, as though its very essence had shifted. The future was no longer distant. It existed in the hearts of every person and every cub aboard. Emily and the cubs walked side by side into the unknown. Kale smiled, certain they were ready, united, to face whatever came next.